When the digging ended, the total was 27 murders.
William Reese is the only suspect in the murders of Jessica Kane, Laura Smitherd, Kellyanne Cox, and Tiffany Johnston.
They got me set up like I'm a serial killer right now.
Tata is charged with 4 counts of manslaughter for this February 24th fire that killed 4 children.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Evidence Room. Today, we're talking about Wanda Holloway. This was a firmly middle-class mom living in Channelview in the late 80s, early 90s. She was well respected. She even played piano at her church, but she wanted her daughter to make the cheerleading team so bad, she was willing to hire a hitman to make that happen. And every time I think of this story, I think of Mark Twain's old quote. No wonder truth is stranger than fiction, because fiction has to at least make sense. Now, to help me talk about this story is veteran KPRC2 journalist Ron Regan, who is now enjoying a well-deserved retirement in Ohio. Thank you for joining us today via Zoom.
I'm glad to be here, Robert. Thanks.
So, set the scene for us. Talk about Wanda's family, the neighborhood she lived in. What was this like when this finally started to come to light?
Well, let me take you back to the very beginning, if that's possible with you. We were out in the afternoon in one of the live trucks, and I got a tip that a woman in Channelview had been arrested the night before and was about to be released from the Harris County Jail on a charge of murder for hire and or solicitation for murder. And as we began to learn more about this from the source, it became even more bizarre, as you had just mentioned.
God has watched over me.
Verna Heath is alive tonight because someone tipped off police. A neighbor was trying to kill her. Her daughter is a cheerleader, one of the most popular girls in her class. The mother of 14-year-old Shauna Harper desperately wanted that for her daughter. Enough, police say, to kill.
When someone wants something for their child and they don't achieve it, it hurts a lot. But nothing is important enough, not this anyway.
The husband of 36-year-old Wanda Holloway said his wife did not want to talk about the allegations. And friends in this quiet neighborhood are shocked by her arrest.
To suggest that she would go to any ends to get her daughter to become a cheerleader, to me, is frankly ludicrous.
This was probably the most unbelievable set of circumstances you could ever imagine. I mean, who would do that? And I can remember clearly when we went out into that neighborhood, because we thought, well, let's go out and see if we can reach her. She's being released from jail on bond, and let's see, maybe we can get there before she gets home. So we got out there and pulled up outside, and I mentioned that we were in the big KPRC live truck, which you can see coming from a mile away, and that was not what we would have preferred to have been in. We really didn't want to draw that kind of attention to ourselves. Not just because we weren't trying to sneak up in that sense, but we didn't want to draw attention in the neighborhood with her neighbors. We just wanted that to be more low key. But we got up outside the house and really made a critical decision at that point, Robert. Are we going to go up there with a camera, or are we going to go up to the door and talk to someone there at the house first? And, that's always a difficult choice, because you don't know if you're ever going to get an interview again. But I bring that up because we were allowed in, and that's how it began. And I can remember, meeting her, and we can get into that later, I guess. But afterwards, I remember going back outside, and a couple of neighbors and high school kids had kind of wandered by. And again, to reinforce this idea of how could this happen? I mean, neighbors who knew her said, this is preposterous. This can't be. This is not the, I just can't believe this would happen.
Well, kind of describe Wanda for us a little bit. I mean, describe Wanda and her family a little bit, for us.
She had married a fairly well-to-do older man. So she was used to more of the finer things than maybe you might even suggest that she could live anywhere, but she chose to live in Channelview because she liked the neighborhood, she liked her church, she had friends there. Her daughter was, as we know, was coming up through school and was very active and was popular in school. But she was a woman who I think wanted more out of life, and was my sense is she was used to getting that. What she wanted, she was used to getting.
Okay, so she had become fixated on her daughter making the cheerleading squad. Why was she so fixated on that?
Well, that's complicated, Robert. She doted over Shanna. Shanna was her whole world. Some people close to her speculated that she was living her life or the life she wished she had when she was growing up through her daughter. So I think there was an element of wanting to live her life through her daughter and trying to make things happen for Shanna that maybe didn't happen for her. And I think that might be the way to explain a very complex woman.
I understand that. In some of your reporting that you did, you interviewed the neighborhood kids, and she even got the neighborhood kids involved in a campaign to try and get her daughter on the cheerleading squad.
But neighborhood teenagers paint a picture of a mother overwhelmed with her daughter's success.
The mom would get flyers for me to pass out at school.
What would the flyers say?
Vote for Shanna Harper.
News of the arrest is now making its way through the junior high school where both girls attend. One mother said, "This kind of thing can't happen here. It only happens in soap operas."
I can remember that interview. That was that day. And there was an astounding story that one of the teens talked about of passing out rulers with Shauna's name on them. And that actually got Shauna disqualified from what she was running for at the time because it violated the school rules. You weren't supposed to be able to give out gifts or any incentives. But yeah, she very actively, very, very actively, and that's a case in point of inserting herself into her daughter's life.
Okay. All right. So let's get into it. First of all, who was the target specifically? And correct me if I'm wrong, but it was, you can say the name, it's Verna Heath and her daughter. Didn't they live next door to each other? I mean, who was the target of this plot? Describe this family.
Well, Verna Heath, well, let me start this way. The target of this was her daughter's rival, Amber Heath. Same age as Shanna, same age as Wanda's daughter. And they lived incredibly just around the corner. So they knew each other well. The families knew each other, and the girls had known each other all through school up to that point. Amber was the target of this, and in the sense of wanting to upset her so much, because the plot was that Verna or Wanda would hire. The allegation was that Wanda would hire a hitman to kill Amber's mother, Verna Heath. So you really had two potential victims here. Verna Heath was the primary victim because she, in the eyes of Wanda Holloway, if she got rid of Verna Heath, it would so upset her daughter that she would not be able to continue on the cheerleading squad, and that would open up the opening for her daughter to get the position which she thought she deserved.
That's nuts. So one of the things that we focus on with this series is the actual evidence that remains in the Harris County Archives. And one of the things that remains in the Harris County Archives is the actual undercover recording of Wanda discussing paying a hitman to take out Verna and possibly her daughter. It kind of went back and forth. So how did this finally come to the attention of police? I mean, how did it rise to the level of let's hire a hitman, and how did police finally find out about this?
Well, Wanda obviously became so enamored with this idea of wanting to do something to get her daughter onto the cheerleading squad that somewhere along the way, she came up with an idea that if she reached out to her former brother-in-law, Wanda had been divorced for a number of years, but had maintained a relationship with her ex-husband and to some extent with her ex-husband's brother, Terry Harper. And she made that connection, and she began to ask for meetings with him. And over the period of time, it became apparent to Terry what it appeared that she wanted to do.
This is Sergeant F.E. Blackwell, January 22nd, 1991, approximately 6 o'clock p.m. Terry Harper is going to place a call to Wanda Holloway at 452-7022 in reference to a capital solicitation of a capital murder.
Hello?
Hey.
Hey.
Can you talk?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, a little bit.
Okay, well, I guess what we need to know is have you got the money?
Well, I can know for sure Friday.
You'll know for sure Friday.
Uh-huh. Looks pretty good.
He believed that she really wanted to do this, that it wasn't just talk.
Yeah, and that's initially, I think initially Terry just thought, well, I'm meeting with my eccentric, this ex-wife of my brother. But it became clear to him, according to police, and you listen to the transcripts, you listen to the recordings, that he felt this had gone too far, and so he went to police. And I want to point out the other reason that Wanda went to Terry was because Terry had a minor criminal record, and I think mistakenly she believed that Terry maybe ran in some circles or knew of some people that could possibly help her. So that's what prompted her to go to her ex-brother-in-law for this. But at some point, Terry went to Harris County detectives, Sheriff's Department detectives, and explained what was happening here in his view.
Okay. Now, one of the things, going back to that recording, when you listen to that recording, I don't know how to put this because I don't want to make light of it. It's almost comical, the discussion back and forth between the two. Well, should we do this? Should we do that? Maybe we can make it look like she was sold into slavery over somewhere in the Middle East. What were your thoughts, and how did basically the public at large react when all this came out? They were just sitting in this truck discussing taking out a cheerleading rival.
Yeah, you listen to those recordings and you go, this can't be possible.
Do you want the mother, or do you want the daughter, or do you want both of them?
What would be the best?
Well,
If you the daughter, for sure she ain't gonna be doing it.
That's what I'm saying. This is your choice.
Talking about this.
Well, I can't believe you and I are talking about this.
The tapes were truly both devastating, disturbing, and sometimes comical.
Okay, and coming up, we're going to take a quick break. After that break, you're going to hear more of those undercover recordings that led to a guilty verdict. We'll be right back.
taking care of that problem?
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, I've gotten in touch with someone for you.
Okay.
And, but I need to know exactly what you want. I know exactly what it's going to take. So,
when can I get with you? That's going to be the problem.
Well, when would be good for you?
Welcome back to another episode of The Evidence Room. We have been talking about Wanda Holloway, the woman that was convicted of trying to hire a hitman to knock off her daughter's cheerleading rival. Joining me is Ron Regan, and before the break, we were talking about those undercover tapes that were played and how it was just amazing to sit there and listen to these two people to discuss something like this. What did it take for the police to finally go in and say, okay, she has crossed that criminal threshold, we have enough for a charge?
Well, as I think back, I think they finally, I think they said to Terry, look, let's go back here one more time and lay this out. And I think they were intent on having Wanda specifically, agree to a payment.
Well, it depends on if you want one or both, if you want the mother.
I thought you did it all. I thought they take care of
Well, they do, but it's expensive. And again, it depends on what you want done,
What kind of money are you talking about? Just give me an idea.
Well, $7,500. Well, I told you, it was going to be expensive. You can't go around killing people just for a nickel and dime,
I mean, I understand that, but I don't have that kind of money I just come up with.
Once they knew that an offer, a financial offer was made for a specific crime, that's when they lowered the boom.
Now, even though Channelview is connected at the hip to Houston, it still to this day has a small town feel. I have to imagine this consumed all of Channelview.
I think it did. I always felt that it reflected, unfairly on Channelview because it got an awful lot of attention because Channelview is a community of strong families, working class folks, people who have high values, who love family. And I think this really, cut deeply into the image that began to spread across the country because this story just took off nationally.
Then there was the movie, and that was starring Holly Hunter and Beau Bridges. You yourself even had a cameo playing yourself in that movie. I can't imagine that was taken well in Channelview.
Well, the movie probably was not taken well in Channelview. I suspect that they felt that it was an unfair portrayal of the community writ large. But what was interesting about the film was directed by Michael Ritchie, who was a pretty respected director in Hollywood and had done The Candidate with Robert Redford, among a number of other films. That his specialty was trying to stick to the historical facts. And so he in many ways in that that was a very accurate portrayal of what went down.
Well, one of the things that struck me when I was sitting in the Harris County Court Archive and I was listening to that undercover recording of Wanda talking with Terry about the hitman, how it would be done, how much it would cost. What struck me is as I'm listening to this, I'm seeing Holly Hunter in Beau Bridges' faces as I'm listening to this audio because it was word for word, and it immediately dawned on me that scene in the movie, that wasn't a script. That came directly from what Wanda and Terry said to one another in that car.
Well, that's exactly right. And I'll bring you this insight. Before that scene was shot, where I speak to her in her house. She was sitting there in the corner of the couch, and I started to go up to her because we had spent a lot of time together by that time. And somebody pulled me back, and I realized she was in the process of literally transforming herself emotionally, and honestly, it almost seemed like physically, into Wanda Holloway. And she was literally getting into that character. So Holly did a tremendous amount of observation, learning, watching, and listening to those tapes, because even the intonation, not just the words, but the clipped fashion of talking, was almost identical to the tapes.
The movie was tongue-in-cheek. People talk about the Pom-Pom murdering mom, all of that. But the reason people can somewhat laugh about it and look at it in somewhat of a comical vein really is lucky, because no one was hurt. This could have had a very different outcome.
Oh, it absolutely could have, Robert. Had she turned to someone other than who she did, and if he decided at some point that he was not going to go directly to authorities with this, you shudder to think what would have happened.
So one of the things that I noticed, because we'll get to the trial now, you covered the trial, and earlier in our interview, you had talked about Wanda as being somebody who was very much in control and probably used to getting what she wanted. And when you said that, what flashed into my mind was that image of her walking down the hall in the courthouse, not a hair out of place, her clothes perfectly apportioned, and you got that sense of control. Did she ever break, during the trial, even during the guilty verdict, did it ever dawn on her the weight of what she was facing?
No, to my recollection, Robert, I don't ever remember her ever breaking. And that is an iconic scene of her walking down that hallway in the Harris County Courthouse and going into that courtroom.
Keep seats, please.
The jury deliberated roughly 5 hours before returning to the courtroom.
The jury reached a verdict. Pass it to the bailiff, please.
38-year-old Wanda Holloway stood silently with no expression.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Wanda A. Holloway, guilty of criminal solicitation for capital murder as charged in count 1 of the indictment.
And watching it all, the woman she is convicted of trying to have murdered. Verna Heath joined hands with Holloway's ex-brother-in-law, the man who secretly tape-recorded the murder plot.
Well, basically, I feel like I done the right thing whenever I realized that I didn't know what to think at first, but whenever I realized that Wanda was serious, I went to the police, and I felt like I done the right thing then. I think I'm doing the right thing now.
Is this your verdict? So say you all. Yes. I will now ask each of you individually if this is your verdict. I will call you name, ask you if this is your verdict. Please indicate yes it is or no it is not, if that may be the case.
And after the verdict, Holloway was comforted by family, trying to hold back tears.
Get her out.
Verna Heath was fighting back her own tears, but refused to comment on the neighbor who plotted against her. Terry Harper, the state's star witness, appeared relieved.
Terry, do you have a reaction to that verdict?
I can't say anything.
Prosecutors, meanwhile, reacted cautiously about the verdict.
Well, I'm pleased with the verdict so far, and again, as I said, we've got more work to do tomorrow. We'll put on any punishment evidence we have, and I don't know if they have any or not. It's just up to them, and again, I don't think I ought to comment on that.
And Wanda Holloway leaves the courtroom, her punishment still to be decided.
You can't say anything, the gag order's still on.
So you have the guilty verdict. How much time was she sentenced to after she was found guilty in that first trial?
In the first trial, she was sentenced to 15 years. And then the other shoe dropped. And it became apparent that there was a problem with the juror. And apparently every juror on a criminal trial is vetted extensively before they're selected to be on a jury. And somehow, in this case, a prior, I think it was a relatively minor drug offense, I think, as I recall, did not become apparent. And that was enough to declare a mistrial.
It was just another of the many shocking details of this case. She gets this mistrial after being found guilty, then pleads no contest, gets sentenced to 10 years in prison, and in 6 months she's out. I believe they called it shock parole.
Right. And there was I want to say 1,000 hours of community service. You know, you look back over the facts of that case, and particularly, again, the recordings which you've referenced, which were so damaging.
Are you thinking 1 or 2 here? That's going, you know, that's something that I would think that would be your first.
I want both of them.
Okay.
It don't mean I can afford it here.
Well, then take the daughter.
And then how do you do one?
5,000.
How you do one?
That's his problem.
It's remarkable that she could spend so little time in prison.
Do you still think about the case at all, or did you over the years, since you've been gone from Houston for a while now? But I've got to imagine it pops up in your mind every now and again.
Oh no, it has. It's a story that you know, it doesn't leave you, because it's just, again, such a tragic destruction of lives, and at the same time so bizarre and unnecessary, and it makes you reflect on human nature and just the extent that someone will go to achieve something they think is owed them. It's stunning.
Ron, I really appreciate you taking time to speak with us, and I more than anything appreciate your insights on this.
Well, thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us for this episode of The Evidence Room. We're going to be back next Wednesday, streaming at 6:30 on the KPRC 2 Plus app. Next week's episode involves Jessica Tata and the horrific deaths of several children at her daycare.